Good evening, welcome everyone to this meeting of the planning panel, which is being held at the Civic Office and is being streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. I'm Councillor Stephen Brown, Chair of the Planning Committee and Chair of tonight's panel. Members of the panel are present in the room tonight and I'll ask them to introduce themselves shortly. As you'd expect, we're also welcomed by a number of officers. For those present tonight, please be aware we're not expecting a fire alarm this evening. In the event the alarm sounds, please exit the building by the nearest marked entrances and assemble outside as indicated by the marshals. We'll now start with introductions and I'll start with the councillors on this side, please.
Good evening, Councillor Keith McLean, one of the Vice Chairs of the Planning Committee.
Evening, Councillor Graham Eden, Member of this Committee.
Councillor Leo Montague, Member of the Committee.
Councillor Waqas Ahmed, Member of this Committee.
And the officers from that side, please.
Nigel Weeks, Highways.
Gabriel Kenyon, Planning Officer.
Tamlin Barton, Senior Planning Officer.
Richard Stewart, Team Leader in Development Management.
Catherine Hall, Head of Legal.
Evening, Alex Melia, Senior Governance and Scrutiny Officer.
Welcome back, Alex. We have 3 planning applications to consider this evening. I will now describe for the benefit of all how we will conduct the meeting. For each application, the officer will introduce the application. Where there are presentations, these will be displayed on the screens in the room and on the recording. I'll then invite those who've registered to speak in advance of the meeting to come forward. I'll ask that officers deal with any points of clarification from councillors following the presentation and then move the recommendation in the report and invite a member of the committee to second. This does not indicate that either of us support the proposal, but allows us to debate the matter formally. I will then invite committee members to raise any points of debate and each member will have up to 3 minutes to speak. To be clear to members of the public present and online, for all applications on the agenda, we will only be considering material planning matters as set out in planning law, and for reference, these are included at the beginning of the meeting agenda, which is available online. If any amendments are proposed, they must be moved and then seconded and then voted upon. Once all contributions have been made, I will sum up and take a vote on the motion or amended motion. I'll ask all participants to keep their contributions to the allotted time and speak only when invited to do so by the Chair, and if legal advice is required at any stage, I'll invite the Council's legal representative to comment. Voting will be conducted via a show of hands unless a recorded vote is requested, in which case a vote will be taken by name. For the benefit of the members of the public, I will briefly reference the use of any electronic devices by councillors. Councillors may be using these devices to access their agendas online, whilst others may wish to have access to background papers or policy documents. We'll now move to the agenda items and start with apologies. Alex, do you have any apologies?
Yes, Chair. So apologies received from Councillor Trendall, who's substituted by Councillor Eaton.
Thank you very much. Declaration of interest. Do any councillors wish to disclose any interest? Councillors would have been declaring any disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interest or non-registrable interests, including other pecuniary interests they may have in the business to be transacted. Officers will disclose any interest they have in any contract to be considered. Public participations. Alex, have we received any questions not related to items on this evening's agenda?
None received, Chair.
Lovely. In that case, we'll move straight on to the applications and start with 5A, the application at the Spinney Works on Cranfield Road, and I will ask Tamlin to introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. This application is located close to Woburn Sands and Wavendon. Spinney Works is an existing employment site located in open countryside, and it's proposed to change the use of this to B8 storage and distribution with ancillary trade counter. Here's a location plan showing the existing unit, the yard, and Spinney Lodge, which is a neighbouring property on the access. And as you can see there, the red line boundary goes up to the adopted highway on Cranfield Road. This is another view just a bit further out, zoomed out, so you can see the crossing of the railway and Pristine Business Park, which is where the applicant, the Roofing Centre Limited, is existing premises are at the moment, and they're proposing to move in to this property. Some site photos here. This is of the yard area and the buildings, and some of the access onto Cranfield Road here, and also the hedges surrounding the access. You can see the dwelling of Spinney Lodge there. Some more photos here. This just shows the looking into the site from the access again, and also from the field next to the site. Also again, Spinney Lodge there, and where the public right-of-way runs across a neighbouring field to the east of the site. And there's a shot of where the driveway runs across there as well. There's just a zoomed-in picture of the location plan here. And as part of this proposal, we're not proposing to approve any site plans for the reasons given in the report. But we will be approving the elevations, which actually there's no changes proposed to the elevations at all. So existing and proposed are the same. So the main considerations are the principle of converting an existing commercial unit to another commercial use is acceptable. This is an existing site. The parking and impacts on the surroundings would be acceptable, subject to conditioning parking details and an external storage yard to constrict the storage of items in the yard to a certain area, as well as requiring boundary treatments and landscaping. The impacts on vehicles would not be substantially different to the previous use, and the previous use did not constrict vehicles accessing this site. In terms of residential amenity, the noise impacts subject to conditions to carefully control hours of retail use, loading of vehicles, collections and deliveries, movement of stock, and the defined storage area for outdoor use. Subject to those, there would not be demonstrable harm in terms of residential amenity. As part of an update, very quick update, there was another objection submitted by the neighbour in Spinney Works today. There's no additional matters raised, but there was a video submitted showing an HGV that was on Cranfield Road, but turning into the access, and another vehicle, turning into the access, but actually reversing back down Cranfield Road to the south, and another vehicle, HGV, coming southbound, and apparently not being able to pass each other. And the highways officer has viewed this video today, and the objection as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two registered speakers in objection to this application. When I call your name, please join us on the chamber floor. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak, but I may exercise my discretion as chair to extend the time in order to make reasonable adjustments for one of our speakers, as has been requested. In this scenario, I will still give you 30 seconds warning when we expect you to wrap up. Can we first have Natalie Turney?
Thank you for the opportunity to address flaws and inaccuracies throughout this process. I'll speak quickly and trust all my points are noted on record. As a lawyer, I'm stunned as to the glaring procedural and legal shortcomings thus far. This application has been materially changed in nature and substance post-consultation without informing the public and without due regard for submissions made in response to the original application. Without duly informing the public and without following due process, you are exposed to judicial review. The bases upon which recommendations to the committee have been made are legally and procedurally unsound. The planning department has been repeatedly put on notice, supported by legal documentation, about misrepresentations and misstatements made. It's made a weak last-minute attempt to address some issues by providing further misrepresentations and misstatements. Challenge will follow, whether by appeal, judicial review or otherwise, and will require the Council to provide evidence as to how it considered and addressed these, informing its recommendation and determination. Within the update paper, I refer to paragraph U2.1. Removal of site plans is not merely undemocratic or mere removal of documentation. A fundamental breach of process has occurred, as mentioned. U3.1. Failure to correct the record as to a noise nuisance complaint. This complaint, made by me, was in regard to the applicant's activity on the Spinney Works site, removing hedging, which could be seen in the photos taken post-application, with no reference to Death Farm. I'll challenge any misrepresentation as to the nature of my personal statements. U4.1 misrepresents existing use classes, this time regarding Death Farm. A lawful development certificate for welding operations was applied for and withdrawn on the advice of the Council. No such permission exists. U4.3 misrepresentations as to noise from Death Farm made without assessment, visit or regard to public submissions. No statement as to compliance can reasonably be made. U4.4, inaccurate statement of locality of my property is set back from Spinney Works, which your photos misleadingly demonstrate by demonstrating the back of the property of Spinney Works. It fails to consider the access road shown in your latest site location map, a matter of metres from my dwelling, and renders statements as to impact of vibrations incomplete and incorrect. The report further fails to address neighbours' human rights under Article 8 of the Convention and Article 1 of the Protocol, First Protocol of the Human Rights Act. No changes to conclusions are made. There is a failure to adequately and sufficiently address misrepresentations, inviting this committee to predicate its decision on unsound bases. The committee must make further investigations, site visits and data requests before making a legally unsound decision. This will not stand up to scrutiny without a basis of fact.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's right. And next, can we have Siobhan Turney, please?
I have written to the Head of Planning highlighting factual errors in the report to committee. The update document does not adequately address these and imports a new, incorrect and misleading area. They are material and serious enough that this application should not be determined tonight. Claims of similar nearby uses are wrong. There are no intensive retail or HGV-dependent operations. Repeated requests for site visits are ignored, allowing these and other inaccuracies to be perpetuated. You are asked to believe that increasing HGV movements from 3 to 240 a week is little or no change, and a small agricultural repair use is comparable to that of an intensive builder's merchant. With no letters sent to residents, the democratic process failed from the outset. Residents were not consulted upon the version before you, denying them the opportunity to comment on the varied application. Environmental Health confirms that the applicant's activities are noisy, maintaining that a noise impact assessment is required. None has been provided. You have no plans for site layout, parking, deliveries, unloading, lighting, storage, signage, drainage, landscaping or operations. You cannot assess harm or set mitigating conditions. Significant change of use requires full transparency and consultation, not a private conversation behind closed doors. If noise assessment reveals serious harm, it will be too late. The permission will have already been granted. Highways and the LPA have been informed that the applicant's technical note is factually incorrect and has been ignored. Reliance on flawed evidence is unsound and negligent. Serious risks have not been addressed, including the single lane access, the substandard vision display, which is against DMRB standards, and the need for HGVs to fully drive onto the opposite carriageway to access. Legal liabilities are obvious. The storage condition is both conflicting and unreasonable. It permits storage to the ridge height of the building at circa 9 metres. Local councils, councillors and many residents have objected, yet the officer gives no meaningful weight to their views. But localism matters. 35 years ago, we bought a home next to a field, now at site access. Strict conditions limited traffic, retail and outside storage to protect our amenity. This application undermines protections which the LPA and planning inspector once deemed essential. Proposed conditions cannot mitigate unknown harm. This is not the application consulted upon, nor it is fit for a decision tonight. It represents a distorted view of the area and the operations. The change is far too great for outline permission alone. Without accurate documentation, site assessments or factual evaluation of harm, meaningful mitigation is impossible. The application is fundamentally incomplete and cannot be assessed with due diligence. Determining it tonight would be premature and unsafe. It is well documented that the LPA and Highways previously objected to and refused planning applications here that were less intensive, recognising the gradual expansion was harmful to amenity. Clear statements acknowledge harm now clearly carry no weight. No factual evidence has been obtained and the planning inspector's conclusions are now ignored. Despite the applicant's agent, Mr. Bassey's suggestions that our submission in objection was misleading, we have provided legal documentation and invited site visits. Finally, to enable correction of repeated errors and for appropriate assessments, I ask for either refusal or postponement and extend an invitation to the committee to attend my home for a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I ask you to turn the microphone off before you leave, Darcy? Thank you. The right of reply has been offered to the applicant and their agents, who will have the same amount of time to respond. So please, can you join us on the floor? I believe it's the agent who is here to respond. Do you know? And as before, I'll give you a 30-second notice when your time's up.
So I was under the impression that we were going to have 6 minutes and we can just split it accordingly. Okay, perfect. Right. So I'll start. The planning application before you today has been subject to a robust assessment by planning, highways, environmental health officers and is recommended for approval. Rather than repeating the officer's report, I intend to respond to the concerns that have been raised by interested parties during consultation. Spinney Works is an established employment site which for 28 years was occupied by Advanced Turf and Machinery. They provided a letter of support and confirmed that their operations included the repair, testing, sale of commercial vehicles and machinery. Day-to-day activities include the use of a 2-ton diesel forklift for loading and moving machinery around the yard. Frequent HGV deliveries were received and the business operated various commercial vehicles, including 6 service vans, a flatbed lorry. At its peak, the business employed 14 staff. Whilst the site is located in the open countryside, it is clearly an established site and appropriate for continued employment use. This change of use application complies with the development plan policies in full and is supported by the planning department. Milton Keynes Highways have also confirmed that safe access and egress can be achieved. The applicant is a small independent roofing supplier operating in Woburn Sands. The application was supported by a technical highways note which detailed existing operations. This confirmed that the company owns 2 HGVs and 1 Luton-style flatbed loader. Each HGV can operate 2 delivery cycles per day, resulting in 4 movements in total. The flat loader undertakes smaller deliveries, and this can include up to 3 delivery cycles per day during peak periods. The applicant has conducted a 2-week survey of its morning deliveries and confirmed that in this period only 1 HGV vehicle was used. The flatbed loader was used on 7 of the 10 days and often made deliveries later in the morning. As a worst-case scenario, there will be 3 deliveries in the morning after 7:30 a.m. The log also confirmed that trade counter visits were limited, averaging to fewer than 2 visits per hour between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. daily. It's important to note that D Farm Industrial Estate includes multiple unrestricted units. This includes a logistics company who operates 5 delivery vehicles from the site, running as early as 4 a.m. daily. There is also a 7-acre car storage and distribution site located to the north of the site on Cranfield Road. This opens from 6 a.m. and operates vehicle transporters which pass the site in the morning. The additional movements from the site in the morning or throughout the day will have no material impact on existing traffic flows, given that Cranfield Road will already experience higher vehicular movements, cars, vans and HGVs at this time. Planning conditions have been agreed and prevent any operations occurring before 7:30 a.m. This includes the use of the trade counter, loading of vehicles, movement of stock, deliveries to and from the site. These conditions will ensure that adequate restrictions remain in place for the lifetime of the permission. Should members still have reservations, the applicant would accept a condition preventing no more than 3 deliveries from the site between 7:30 and 8 a.m. In conclusion, the proposals are modest in scale and will not result in any material impact on highway safety or amenity. We respectfully request that planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name's Lee Morris. I'm a local businessman, father to 2 young boys. I run a small roofing merchant business. I employ local people who live in the area. Proud to work for the business, and that is part of the community, and they care about it just as much as I do. I'm involved heavily with the local football club, sponsoring 2 teams and coach the under-8s. I use local garages to repair my company vehicles, local magazines to advertise my company services, and use the High Street daily, all supporting local business. I have a good relationship with all my current neighbours, both residential and commercial at my current site, some of whom are much closer to the site than the one house to the site we are discussing. I've never had a complaint about noise and disturbance in the 5.5 years I've been there. When I purchased the property, I was not aware of the planning conditions put on the site until a week before completion, which was a real concern. The first thing I did upon purchasing the site was personally introduce myself to the neighbours. I explained how my current business operates, what our daily routine looks like, and what measures I'd put in place to ensure there'd be no unnecessary noise, disruption or impact on anyone nearby. I even offered a visit to my current premises at any time of day so they could see with their own eyes how we operate. One of the neighbours took me up on that, which was great. I have nothing to hide, and I've always been open to conversation to alleviate any concerns. Unfortunately, this was rejected by one neighbour and I received a negative response. My intention has never been to cause difficulty for anyone. My intention is simply to run a small, well-managed local business that supports local people and their families. Over the past months, this process has been overwhelming. The uncertainty and the obstacles placed in front of me have taken a real toll on me personally. But I'm still here because I believe in what I do and I'm contributing positively to this community. I respect the planning process and I understand that conditions have been applied. I accept these and will ensure my operation will comply with them in full. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. If you can take your seats again. Do the officers wish to offer any immediate points of clarification to anything said from any of the presentations?
No, thanks, Chair.
Sorry, if I just could, Mr. Chair, just on one specific point, it was quoted that this site would generate, excuse me, 240 new HGV vehicle trips a week. I don't know the source of that. I'm assuming that if you look at the table of movements in the highways report, on page 5, that quotes 40 vehicles a day, and so 6 days a week would be 240. So I assume it's reasonable to assume that's where it comes from. If you look at the breakdown in the table, 18 of the trips are staff trips, which presumably will be cars or vans. So into 6 of them are Luton van flatbeds, which are large vans, fundamentally. They're not HGVs. So you've got 8 grain lorries, 2 Arctic deliveries and 2 flat loaders, so that would be 12 a day or 72 vehicles a week, not 240. So just a point of clarification. It's all an area of disagreement, whichever way you want to look at it.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that was going to be one of the questions which would have come up at any rate, but thanks for the early clarification. Are there any other questions of clarification for the officers from the committee? Councillor Monty.
Just to make sure my understanding is correct, on page 12 of our papers, which is the relevant planning history, am I right in reading that this site used to have B8 status has changed at some point in the past and is now looking to change back to the same status it had in the past?
Yeah, that building did originally have a B8, but it was a long time ago.
Can I ask for some clarification? So one of the points made in the first presentation was about the change in the nature of the application post-consultation. How significant were those changes, and is that something that we need to reconsult on?
There's been no change to the application description since this, since the original planning application submission. So if you look on the application form, it's exactly the same now. What we've changed is, well, we've not changed it, we've just decided not to approve the plans. The existing plan, because of an enforcement inquiry, is not accurate. The proposed plans are also not accurate. So we propose to just approve the red line boundary and to condition other details, which we think can be addressed satisfactorily through conditions, which of course will be, these plans will be publicly available on discharge of condition applications.
So in order to sort of spell out the procedure for members of the public who aren't planning experts, if this were to be approved on the red line, there would be a condition requiring them to submit the plans before they get approved as well, and that would be another level of approval.
Sorry, that would be preoccupation as recommended in the report.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Keith?
It's a question for the legal officer. At the beginning of Natalie Turney's presentation, fairly close to the start, there was if this is approved, we're going to appeal it and take a JR. Do we have to take account of the threat?
So councillors need to consider the application in front of them tonight. You need to consider, obviously, representations made by all objectors and all in right of reply. It is a matter for individuals to decide if they do not agree with the outcome, whether or not they then wish to pursue a challenge in another route, such as a judicial review.
Could you advise how much the council may cost for an appeal or a JR?
So you're dealing with two different processes there. An appeal would be for example, if an application was not approved and was refused, then an applicant would have the right to appeal. That would go through that process in its own right. Whether or not that would then lead to an award of cost or an application for costs against the council would be dependent on the circumstances and the grounds of that appeal. In terms of the judicial review, then they again would have a right to apply for costs of applications as part of their submissions. And again, that would depend on the level of likelihood of success of that would depend very much on the grounds on which they're submitting their challenge and whether we feel we are able to successfully defend it.
But just to clarify, I think you said if the applications decline, then there could be an appeal. Can someone appeal an application that's approved?
The only people who would be able to appeal an application would be where it has been refused. If it's being approved, the only thing they could do is, for example, if there's conditions that they don't feel are favourable, they could challenge on that side of matters, but I don't believe it would be an appeal. I believe it would be through Section 73 application, for example, to revoke or remove a condition.
But that's the applicant who's been successful. I think it was the objector who said she was going to appeal it.
The objector won't be able to unless they can prove they're not the applicant, so they would need to consider a judicial review process.
Are there any other causes of JR?
Yes.
We got there.
Any other questions from the committee?
Yes.
Go for it.
Councillor Hopkins mentioned that there's been a removal of a hedgerow. Whereabouts on that plan was this hedgerow has been removed?
So the hedgerow in question is part of an enforcement inquiry and is not to be considered today.
Right, okay.
But it was along the boundary.
The boundary.
But which boundary?
Exactly. It's on the north and west.
Graham, can you turn your microphone off, please? If you're done.
Sorry.
Can I circle back briefly to the highways question? So we wouldn't expect there to be 240 HGV movements a week to the site, but it is next door to, or let me phrase it this way, given its current usage, there is no restriction on the number of HGVs that could visit the site currently. So if the current usage, if we were to refuse this, there's no reason why the current usage couldn't match the number of HGV visits of the proposed use.
That's correct, Chair. There's no restriction in vehicle movements on the current usage. So any use under the current legal planning status of the site could generate as many vehicles and as type of vehicles as they would. So, for example, given the historic use was repairs of horticultural machinery, if someone set up a sort of intensive farm repair vehicle thing, they could have large farm vehicles coming in and out all the time, as an example.
So, follow-up question for either yourself or the planning officer. Given that the proposed change of use doesn't change the potential number of vehicles coming onto the site, whether that be LGV, passenger vehicles or HGVs, there would be no grounds for refusal on the number of vehicles coming to the site, because the change of use doesn't, in and of its nature, change the potential number of vehicles coming to the site.
That's correct, Chair. And if you were to refuse it, that area would be very difficult to defend on appeal.
Any other questions from the committee? No. In which case, we will move on to the debate section. I will propose recommendation for debate item 5A, application 2005/1927, which is that permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in the main report. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor McLean. Who would like to open the debate? Thank you, Councillor Montague.
I'll go. Thank you to everybody who's spoken so far. I think listening to, obviously there is always emotion attached to applications when things are close to different dwellings, etc., which is completely understandable. I actually don't think in any of the discussion I've heard anything sufficiently material to make me think this would be unreasonable to approve, unless during the course of the debate somebody raises something that changes my mind on that point. And I am in favour of the points made in the agenda around supporting local businesses, supporting economic growth, and I think we should be doing that as a council. So without anything material that seems to me a reason to decline the application, I would be in favour at this point.
Thank you very much. Any contributions from the other councillors? Councillor McQueen.
Thank you. Having read the papers twice and looked at the diagram and listened to both the objectors and the applicants and his agent, I'm torn between recommending a postponement and going to look at the place, but I do know it because I've actually been down there when it's an agricultural merchant. I don't know the volumes of traffic, so I didn't sit there very long, but it's a fairly quiet road. And taking what Nigel said about the potential for traffic movements by all types of vehicles, I am minded to request an adjournment to go and have a look. But I think Leo's point is absolutely spot on. I don't actually think there's anything in the papers that I could materially change by going to look at the place. I think the point that Tamlin made about the hedge being the subject of an enforcement matter is a bit of obfuscation, because if it was there, then it probably wouldn't be brought to the attention of this panel, because there wouldn't be the view you could see because the hedge was there. So I think that is something we probably should consider, but I don't think we can consider because it's to do with an enforcement matter. So I'm coming down in favour of supporting the recommendation to approve.
Thank you very much. Any contributions from last two? No. Okay. So, in summation, the enforcement matter does throw a spanner in the works, but it is always one of those things where we are told we can't take other applications, other sites, enforcement matters. There are very specific things which we are able to take into consideration, and sort of the people and their other actions in other cases, such as taking down a hedge when they shouldn't do, aren't things we can take into consideration. So it comes down to the vast majority of the objections are around the level of traffic, the road safety, the number of the vibrations and so on caused by that traffic. And as we have the Highways Department telling us that the actual increase in traffic isn't predicted to be that significant, and in any event, without the application, an entirely equivalent amount of traffic could also be approved. As Leo and Keith have said, there isn't clear grounds for us to refuse this, which leads towards the approval. Alex, can I ask you to take the vote, please?
Thanks, Chair. Councillors, please raise your hand if you're in favour of the recommendation. And those against? So it's 3 in favour and 2 against, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, the motion is carried and approval is granted. We'll move on to 5B, unless Keith wants to go and get a glass of water to help with his cough. No? All right. We'll move on to 5 The Green in Wifton-on-the-Green, and Tamlin is to introduce this one as well, please.
Thanks, Chair. This application is located at 5 The Green, 5 and 6 The Green. There's an image there of showing the red line boundary of the site, which lays to the back of number 5 and 6. As you can see from that view, the blue line is the ownership of the applicant as well, so that's to the west and south. But the application area to be considered today is the red line you can see there. The application is to demolish the remains of a former lambing shed, which is next to the listed buildings of number 5 and 6, Wifton-on-the-Green. Here you can see some photos of the existing shed. And there's a photo there with, on the left-hand side, you can see the view of this building to the side of just a clear shot there of the listed buildings in front there. There's a proposed site plan. It's proposed to turn this into a single dwelling for 2 bedrooms, 2 double bedrooms, with a small amenity yard at the south end. As you can see from that plan, there's proposed 2 parking spaces. One would be to the south of an existing garage, which is the larger rectangle you can see in the centre of the picture, and to the southern bay would have cycles in it. There's an image of the proposed elevations of the dwelling, and there's a floor plan. I've just included tracking plans here as they were submitted. This is to demonstrate that the existing garage to the north, cars can still access that, and cars could access the proposed spaces as well. I've just clarified that that's reverse would be brown, and the blue is in forward gear. So the key considerations here, it's on previously developed land. It's creating a dwelling on a site where there's no dwelling at the moment, and that would be considered a benefit in the planning balance. Conservation officers have confirmed that this is not a curtilage listed building, the remains being demolished, and that the proposal would not harm the setting of the listed building. There are no other policy conflicts subject to conditions which are detailed at the back of the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have 3 speakers registered in objection to this application. As before, when I call you forward, please join us on the chamber floor. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. I will go in alphabetical order and ask for Tracy Banner to come down first, please.
Many thanks for letting me speak this evening. My name is Tracy Banner and I've lived in Wifton-on-the-Green for over 30 years, myself in a building that is actually one of the former farm buildings in the area. With respect to number 5, since 2009, no conservation or preservation of the main building has been undertaken. It's a Grade 2 listed building within the Wifton-on-the-Green conservation area and also adjacent to the ancient monument. The historic property was also inhabited before 2009, but not since. From 2009, significant elements of number 5, e.g. numerous windows, large parts of the roof, and some walls as well, have been removed invariably without planning permission and no repair made, increasing the extent and the rate of deterioration of the main number 5 building. This planning application is parochial and yet another one requests for piecemeal development on the site and takes into no account the preservation and the restoration of number 5 itself in terms of the historic building. A way forward needs to be agreed by the planning committee to ensure number 5 is preserved and conserved as a matter of urgency and not prioritise the approval of this planning application, which will further be a distraction from that conservation work that's urgently required. That's the essence of my point of objection.
Okay, if you're done, then
yep, done.
Okay, that's fine. You can take a seat.
Thank you.
And I'll call forward Geoffrey Miller, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Geoffrey Miller, and I've been a resident of Wifton-on-the-Green since 1984. The property at number 5 The Green is within a designated conservation area, and the main house on the plot is a listed building. I'm objecting to the proposed development on the grounds that it is out of character and inappropriate within this conservation area. I would remind the panel that since the ownership of the property changed hands in 2009, there have been numerous applications for a variety of projects. The majority of those approved by the panel have never been followed through. The panel has in the past granted permission and requirements for the repair and restoration of the main house on the site, but only minor work has ever been carried out, with the result that the listed ancient house has been allowed to dilapidate to a very serious state of decay. I believe that the panel should not permit any new development on this site until those remedial works have been completed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And lastly, we'll call forward Councillor Grindley, please.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Councillor Robert Grindley. I'm here on behalf of Old Wifton Parish Council. and also our residents who have repeatedly and consistently raised concerns about this site with us over a number of years. Before I outline the reason for objecting, just like to provide some context. Sadly, the site at 5 The Green and the applicant site has been like an open sore in Wolfton-on-the-Green. The principal listed buildings, Woodbine Cottage and Cottage Farm, are in a sorry state, partially demolished, water pouring through plastic sheeting, collapsed walls, windows and doors hang open and broken. The listed buildings have been allowed to fall into disrepair by the applicant. And this has been going on for a number of years, as has been outlined. But this is a really important site. It is a picturesque and historic part of our city. It needs protection. It's next to the Scheduled Ancient Monument, next to Apple Tree Cottage. But unfortunately, due to the actions and inaction of the applicant, the heritage is crumbling away before our eyes. The records clearly show numerous examples of unauthorised demolition and unauthorised development. As a parish council, our main objective is to see the restoration and repair of the listed buildings and see them saved and brought back into active use. There is planning permission and listed building consent in place for this to happen, but it's not happening. We would like the applicant to focus on their legal obligations to protect the listed buildings at 5 The Green. So our reason for objecting in that context, objecting to the new dwelling on this site, is because of the unauthorised demolition of the old lambing sheds. So these were knocked down to make way for new development. They were demolished in a conservation area, considered a curtilage listed building, and demolished without consent. Our view is that this application should not be approved in this context.
30 seconds.
If there's any doubt, I would ask the panel to consider a site visit, and this would be an opportunity to assess if there's any further unauthorised development. Something we've raised in our formal consultation for this application. We do feel that planning enforcement checks are needed, and I would ask this to be followed up. So in summary, there is planning permission and listed building consent in place for the restoration of the existing cottages, but there is no action. So due to this poor stewardship over a significant number of years, new development should not be permitted in this context of neglect and mismanagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The right of reply has been offered to the applicant and their agents, who will have a total of 9 minutes to respond. So I believe the agent, Paul Sturgis, if you can come forward, sit on the table on my left. And again, I will let you know when there are 30 seconds left.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. It's important to note, to say that all the objections that have been made on this application do not concern the principle of development or any other material consideration and relevance to this application. None of the comments relate to the proposals as shown on the architectural drawings. Rather, the comments concern number 5, The Green, the main house at the property, which I am also involved in, and with others. This is not the focus of this application, and therefore the comments are irrelevant to this application being heard at this committee this evening. Notwithstanding this, I do wish to mention that we have entered into a planning performance agreement with the council to advance a planning and listed building consent application for the main house. This is now live and running, and has been dealt with by Simon Peart, your Conservation Officer, who has been very, very involved from the beginning on this application. Not just the planning officer involved, but Simon himself has made many visits to the property and continues to do so to check the state of number 5. In terms of the application itself, the new dwelling has been sympathetically and carefully designed and replaces the remains of a former lambing shed. A slab and a selection of the wall belonging to a building that had little architectural merit and was in poor dilapidated condition. We have accepted the conditions as recommended by the Council's consultants, and I therefore respectfully ask that you agree with your planning officers and conservation officers' recommendations as set out of the committee report and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do the officers wish to offer any points of clarification to the matters raised by the speakers?
I've got nothing to clarify, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, do the councillors have any questions of clarification straight up there, Leo?
Thank you. I would appreciate some clarification on the point the right of reply has just made on the relevance of previous applications at 5 the Green that maybe haven't followed through, anything else going on the site, or, as I understand it, we are legally bound to just assess this application on its merits. I would appreciate some comment on that.
Sure. Yeah, you need to consider the application in front of you and the proposal in the red line boundary in front of you. You can consider the setting of the listed building, however. But yes, you have to consider that and not the existing applications elsewhere.
Councillor Ahmed?
Just a clarification, the conservation officer noted no heritage harm, but there have been reference to some past stuff which have been done. So will those non-regularities which has happened on the site, will there be, like, are they part of this application, or will that be, if this is accepted overall, will that go away, or will that still be investigated and make sure?
The applications you're talking about, I think, are the ones neighbouring, which are on number 6 and number 5. The listed buildings there, that is a separate application, and that is being dealt with through engagement with the council on another application. Thank you.
Councillor McLean?
Thank you. I think I heard that the lambing shed had been demolished before any application was approved to carry out work, including this application. There's a number that have been withdrawn. Do you have any history of what happened at that site, please, Samlin?
I mean, not beyond the history in front of you, in terms of the investigations into that. I don't have that in front of me. If it was an enforcement inquiry in terms of the demolition, then that must have not been expedient. Otherwise, it's not in this report. But it is, yeah, it's what we're considering today are demolishing the remains that are there at the moment in terms of demolition, not the previous demolition of that structure.
Sorry, are you saying it's been demolished?
Most of it has been demolished, but as you can see from the photos, not all of it, which is why it's demolition of the remains of the former lambing shed in the description. Yeah.
Can you clarify, Tomlin, the Heritage Officer has confirmed that the lambing shed itself wasn't part of the listed building?
Yes, that's correct, and it's not curtilage listed either, which means it's not listed as part of the curtilage of the listed building, yeah.
And in the report, it said, or the application says that the building is on, I'll get the exact wording here, it's largely the same footprint as the lambing shed do we have a rough estimate of percentage over? Is it exactly the same? Is it within 5%?
I can refer you back to the drawings if you want. So this is, well, actually for the photos and the drawings. So this, you can see the lambing shed there. There's two views of it. You can see the end gable. You can see both gables there, and this is what's proposed. So it's very, very similar in terms of what's proposed here. There is an amenity space built around and a hedge around that, but the actual new building is almost identical in size, yes.
And just segueing into the conversation about the amenity space, it's a small amount of amenity space, but it's a very small house. Judging from the pictures, it leaves number 5 with, or the one straight in front of it, a very small amenity space for a much larger house, presumably, again, because that's now on a different curtilage. We can't take that into consideration either.
That's true. So if you're talking about number 5, number 5 is to the east on that drawing, so to the right-hand side. So yeah, it would be slightly smaller, but it's not a significant incursion. And as you know, we're proposing to remove permitted development rights because we want that proposed amenity space to be not to be built on, because it is not the greatest. It's not the biggest amenity space, but it's not refusable under either.
Further questions from the committee for clarification? Okay, in that case, we will move on to the debate, and I will propose recommendation that is item 5B, 2025/1805, which is that permission be granted subject to the conditions set out in the main report. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Wakas. Who would like to speak first on the debate? Thank you, Leo.
I think if I was a resident in the area, in the immediate vicinity, I would probably share the same concerns as the objections raised today, but I don't think they are material planning planning considerations, and they are not considerations that we can take into account in this meeting, much as I might sympathise with them. And I, much like the last application, cannot see any material reason for us not to approve this. And so at the moment I am in favour unless somebody convinces me otherwise.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak on this one? No? Well, that leaves me a very simple job with summing up. I think, as you say, Leo, much like the last one, we can't take into account the applicant's other actions on other sites, whether those be taking down hedges in the previous application or not repairing a listed building. In this one, I have a particular fondness for old buildings, and I always dislike it when I see them go into disrepair, but I also do appreciate the difficulty in repairing listed buildings in an appropriate way. Whether or not there is ongoing conversations with the heritage officer on the other site isn't a material consideration, but nevertheless is good to know that they are in process. But given that the shed itself wasn't a listed building and so didn't need to be protected, there is no significant material consideration which would allow us to block this development of what is, as mentioned in the report, previously developed land. So we'll move to the vote, please, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, please raise your hand if you're in favour of the recommendation. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, the motion carries and permission is granted. We'll move on to 5C, which is 3, I believe it's pronounced Bollebeck Avenue, and I will ask Gabriel to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, councillors. As was mentioned, this is PLN 2025-2396, which is a front porch on Bollebeck Avenue, Eagle Farm South. It's been brought to the panel tonight due to a potential conflict of interest, as the applicant has a close family relationship with a member of staff at the council. The site's located here in a residential area adjacent to the small Sainsbury's. and the dwelling forms half of a pair of semi-detached 2.5-storey dwellings located close to the highway and the footpath. And the street has a very strongly emphasised building line, as seen here in both directions, with again a very strongly repeating architectural character. And again, here is the location in context. So here are the existing and proposed elevations, showing the flat roof porch that protrudes beyond the front of the dwelling. And here are the existing and proposed floor plans, showing again the porch protruding beyond the dwarf wall that's present at the front of the dwelling. The key considerations are centred on the design and the character of the porch within the street scene. This proposal is considered to not adequately reflect the character and context of the local area, as it introduces an unduly bulky forward projection that disrupts the building line, the views along the street, and a repeating pattern of unaltered dwellings. As a result, it's actually not considered to comply with policies D1, 2 and 3 of Plan MK, and as such it's being recommended for refusal today. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one speaker registered in support of this application this evening, so can I ask for Mr. and Mrs. Buzdugan, and I apologise for the pronunciation of that, to come forward. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will try and notify you when you have 30 seconds left.
Good evening, my name is Vanda Buzdugan, and I'm the wife of the applicant. I'm the owner of the 3 Bolbeck Avenue. I have a few things to add to this refusal, and I do consider the refusal relies on subjective language, including excessively preeminent, excessively bulky, unsympathetic, and disorderly addition, as it was mentioned in the report. However, no objection design metrics or harm tests have been applied to justify these conclusions. Also, the proposal is a single-story porch. In the report, it was mentioned the height will be 2.85, but in fact, it's 2.7. Also, it's using matching materials and the same brickwork, the same tile to match the existing roofing. Also, and we think it's proportional to the host dwelling. I noticed in the plan there is, it was mentioned there is another outbuilding in the garden relevant to the application. That's just a gazebo. It's not another extension or another construction. And I consider there is no quantitative or qualitative evidence to demonstrate dominance or visual oppression. Also, the refuser identifies no material planning harm. Also, the council own report confirms no amenity harm, no daylight harm on my neighbor or in the area, no privacy harm, no overbearing impact. So refusal is based purely on subjective design judgment, not planning harm. Thirdly, the policy has been misapplied, I think, in relation to D1, D2, D3, because I consider the design policy requires proportionality and integration, not just architectural uniformity. Being the first porch is not a planning reason for refusal. Also, I want to mention that at point 7.3 in the report, it was said that there is no any other porches approved in the area, but in fact there are 2. Sorry?
30 seconds left.
I haven't.
Sorry, 30 seconds left to speak.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there are already 2 porches in the area, 2 streets away. One is already built and has literally the step on the street. There is no any path. And I consider our property, our application will not create any precedent when there are already 2 applications approved and one of the applications already use the rights and build the porch, which is I consider that one could be considered a bulky one because it's a very big one with windows, doors, roof, windows. I disagree with the idea that this will be very bulky and unsympathetic to the street scene.
Okay, thank you very much. Do the officers wish to offer any points of clarification to the points made by the Speaker?
No clarifications, Chair.
Leo's already got his hand up, off you go.
Thanks. Apologies if I've missed it anywhere. Can somebody tell me how old the house is? As question one, does anybody know when it was built? Thank you. And then my follow-up question, I'm really trying to decipher from the papers, particularly this picture and this picture, how close the porch gets to the path, but it's quite difficult because the red lines are really chunky. I know that sounds stupid. Is it possible for you to describe, maybe using the photo of the actual front of the house, how close we get to the path with the front of the porch?
The porch would reach approximately halfway through the white stones present at the front of the house.
Thank you.
Did that get you what you wanted?
It did.
Good. Any other questions of clarification, Keith?
The applicant made reference to other porches in the area. Do we know where they are and how far away they are from the application site?
As the applicant stated, it's several streets away. There are none present on...
Sorry, you can't say that. Can you speak up, please?
It's several streets away. It's not on this street or an adjacent one.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Is it fair to say that the objections to this, as raised by the Speaker, are principally aesthetic in that it changes the look of the street scene by having a protruding porch, that there isn't, other than the aesthetics of how it looks from the street, there is no real harm being proposed?
In terms of aesthetics, Chair, that is the harm. So the design and the impact on the character of the area, impact on the property, impact on the rhythm of what is, as we've just heard, a very recent estate. That is the harm. So the aesthetics, in the way you describe it, is the harm that we're describing through the application. Excuse me.
So, following from the comments made by the Speaker, that harm is, relatively speaking, a subjective one. There's no, unlike when we see some proposed extensions and there is, overshadowing, or it gets you too close to someone else's garden, so you're invading their privacy and that kind of thing. There's no quantitative measurement of that harm. It is how much do we as a panel think the street scene is unique and special enough that it needs to be preserved?
Yes, Chair. I mean, we can't put numbers on it. It's an assessment in terms of what the character of the area is, what's important about the current character of the area, and how the proposed development integrates well with that, whether it detracts from its character, which we in this case consider it does, due to its excessive depth, bulky form. It would, in our opinion, appear as an unduly prominent character in the street scene. If you can look at the photo on the right-hand side, we've got quite flat frontages. It extends beyond the dwarf wall to the front of the property as well, and would appear as a very obvious addition to the property, to the detriment, in our opinion, of the character of the area, which is one of the material planning considerations we are required to consider when assessing the appropriateness or otherwise of a planning application. It's obviously clearly not as easy when we talk about 45-degree lines, overshadowing, overbearing. They're quantifiable. This is based on an assessment of the character of an area and how it fits in or not, and what the potential harms would be associated with what's being proposed.
Thank you. Any of the committee have any other questions I'd like to raise? Leo?
Sorry. Is there any sense under which a porch of some nature would be allowed under permitted development? Yeah.
In this case, as it's within 2 metres of the highway, it wouldn't be able to do a porch at the front of this dwelling.
Any other questions? No? Okay, we'll move on to the debate. Recommendation for debate is item 5C, application 2025-2396, which is that permission be refused for the reasons set out in the main report. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Keith. Who would like to speak first on the debate on this one? There you go, Leo. Well done.
I'll go. The reason I asked about the age of the house is I noted from the report there's not many porches, or no porches on the street, not many porches in the area. It's a very new area, so you would imagine that until there are some in the first place that happen, and you might imagine over a period of time porches will appear. I find it hard because refusing the application makes me feel like we are anti-porch in some way, which I don't think we are, or I'm personally not. And my question around, so then the question comes back round to the street scene and how it looks. And what's running around in my head is, if this porch was within the wall boundary, as you can see on the picture, so it's useful to have this picture still up there, I think it would be a no-brainer, it would be fine, because we were either okay with porches or we're not, and I would say we are okay with porches. The fact that it then just encroaches slightly towards the path, not all the way to the path, is what is planting a seed of doubt in my mind. I accept the point that that's quite an intrusive porch. That's quite a lot of depth, which is I think the point that's been made, which is, so speaking now, I would like to hear other people's opinions before I make up my mind entirely, but those are the things that are going through my head, which hopefully don't sound too silly.
Nothing you say ever sounds silly to me, Leo, it's fine. Anyone else like to contribute to the debate? Graham?
I'm like Leo, I like porches, particularly as the prevailing wind is onto this frontage, and having a gale coming in that front door is going to take a lot of heat away from the hall. Having a porch there would mitigate that and save energy. So I'm in favour of porches like Leo.
There you go, that's an eco reason for supporting porches. Any other contributions to the debate? Rokas, Keith? Go on then.
Thank you. I also like porches in the right place. I've seen many extensions of porches at fronts of houses, but not in a street scene like that. Excuse me. And looking at the size of it and how close it gets to the dwarf wall, it will distort the views in the area, which were carefully designed to provide that nice straight line with the little overhangs at the front doors. Taking what Leo and Graham have said about porches, yes, but not here.
Okay, I will sum up those contributions. We all like porches. Porches are good. They provide useful amenity to a household. We're not against porches. We're not against first developments on estates, because the nature of a precedent is that the precedent has to go first. So someone always has to be the first person to do something. And in this scenario, the first do something would be to alter the front line of the houses. It comes down to, as discussed, an aesthetic, a judgment on aesthetic harm. I think if these were all very old buildings and there had never been a porch put up, we would all probably agree that there is an established heritage value to that. Milton Keynes is obviously an area of quite a lot of new build. I think the stat was that it's something like 15% in the last 10 years has been built in Milton Keynes. We shouldn't devalue the aesthetic value of a street just because it's new, especially in a city which has quite so much new build as Milton Keynes. So we're not against porches, but maybe this one is too big and in the wrong place. We will see how the debate goes. Have a vote, please, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, please raise your hand if you're in favour of the recommendation to refuse. And those against? And any abstentions? So that's 1 in favour, 3 against and 3 abstentions, Chair. Apologies, 1 abstention.
Thank you. I think that means that the proposal falls, in which case the application is granted, by my understanding. Okay, sorry, yes, I'm being reminded. The proposal falls, in which case I need one of the people who voted against it to provide an alternative motion.
Propose that the application be approved. Is that? With conditions as suggested to me somehow?
Sorry, Chair, just to clarify for the process on here, if members are minded to propose a motion for approval, contrary to officer recommendation, you do need to provide the reasons on which you wish to propose approval.
The reasons are that, in my view, on the review of the papers and all of the considerations given tonight, that it doesn't materially impact the street scene and that the benefit of allowing development outweighs the considerations of the street scene.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Wakas. Does anyone want to speak against, or does anyone want to speak on that motion? Okay, in that case, we will vote on...
Chair, we also need to look at conditions.
Could a reasonable alternative motion for us to put through to say that we recommend to officers that they consider this for approval, not rejection, including considering the relevant conditions to be attached? So we're not approving it tonight, but we're recommending to you that you take it back and approve it. Is that a reasonable thing for us to do?
Okay, so the motion should be that seek to approve with conditions as agreed between the chair and the vice chairs and the head of development.
Yes, fine with that.
Is everyone happy with that as the motion to be voted on?
Yes.
With a second from Wakas. Okay, does anyone want to speak on that motion? Are the officers happy with that wording of the motion? Alex, can we take a vote, please?
Thanks, Chair. Councillors, please raise your hand if you're in favour of the amended motion. And those against? And any abstentions? Okay, so that's 3 in favour, none against, and 2 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, that second motion carries. Approval is granted, subject to conditions to be agreed between the planning officers and the chair and vice chairs of the committee. That closes tonight's formal business at 2019. Thank you very much, everyone.